Hello and welcome to part 1 of lesson 5. This session is about the release to warehouse process and the shipping consolidation. I'd like to highlight first that most of the options that will be discussed in this session are applicable for the outbound flow of the sales orders and the transfer orders. I'm going to focus on this session on the sales order process, where the transfer order flow will be covered later on in a dedicated session. Now let's get started by the release to warehouse process. The release to warehouse step represents a key part of any business process for the sales order picking and shipping. The release to warehouse is the process of making the inventory ready for the dispatching process. Now let's refresh our mind about the release to warehouse process in a basic flow of order picking scenario. The release to warehouse step automatically creates a shipment that represents a group of order lines that will be shipped to the same customer and same delivery address. And then, depends on the wave template configuration, when the wave will be processed, a corresponding load will be created that represent one or more shipments that are grouped together in a single truck. The process of releasing the wave also results in the automatic creation of the picking work for the wave. The process of release to warehouse might be vary from a company to another company depending on the business industry and the warehouse or the logistics process. So for example, for the order picking scenarios, the release to warehouse step can be performed for a single sales order from the sales order form. Typically, this process performed at the completion of the order entry process by the customer service rep. This process could be performed also for multiple sales order lines using the release to warehouse form. So you can use the release to warehouse form to view a subset of open sales order lines based on selection criteria such as the shipping warehouse, shipping date, or maybe the shipping carriers or any other available information. And then you can release those order lines to the warehouse together. The release to warehouse form is typically used by the shipping clerks to review the shipping requirements and to initiate the required picking activities. You can also perform the release to warehouse step to release a specific load using the load planning workbench form. Typically, the load planning workbench form is used by a transportation coordinator to create a load that group the shipments that will be delivered in the same truck. Last but not least, the release to warehouse process can be performed on a periodic basis based on recurrence time frame using the automatic release of sales orders periodic function. Using this job, you can define a selection criteria that determines the applicable sales order lines that should be released together. When you perform the release to warehouse step, the release status of the sales order will be updated with the following three status. The first one is open, that indicates that the sales order has not been released to the warehouse yet. And then when you release the sales order to the warehouse, the status will be either released if the entire order lines have been released to the warehouse, or partially released in case of one or more order lines have not been released. Now let's navigate to the application and see how to perform release to warehouse step. I'll start first from the sales order form, and in that case, we're gonna release a specific sales order. In order to release sales order to the warehouse, first you should ensure that the order lines have been reserved. The reservation could be performed automatically as per the legal entity configurations, or also could be performed manually. In order to reserve a sales order line, then select the order line and click inventory, then reservation. And here in the reservation form, you can either reserve the order quantity or you can click reserve lot. In that case, the order line quantity will be reserved. Once you reserved the order line, then here in the warehouse tab, actions, click release to warehouse. The order lines will be released to the warehouse, and here in the sales order header, the release status will be automatically updated. Here the release status is released because the entire order lines have been released, but in case one or more sales order lines have not been released to the warehouse, then the release status will be partially released. The second way to perform release to warehouse by using the release to warehouse form. Here in the release to warehouse form, you can view subset of open sales order lines or transfer order lines. Then here in the grid of the open order lines, you can apply some manual filter in order to select the order lines that should be released to the warehouse. It's important to mention that this form is marked for deprecation, and since app release 10.0.21, there are two new forms that have been introduced with significant performance improvement to manage the release to warehouse process for the sales order lines and the transfer order lines. So it's really recommended to use the new forms. Now let's navigate to release to warehouse forms. There are two forms, one for the sales order lines and the second one for the transfer order lines. Now we are in the release sales orders to warehouse form that found in warehouse management module, release to warehouse, then release sales orders to warehouse. In the release sales orders to warehouse, you will find here the open sales order lines that are ready to be released to the warehouse, assuming that these order lines have been reserved. In the release sales orders to warehouse form, you will find here two sections. The first one that has the open sales order lines, and the second one that has the order lines that are ready to be released to the warehouse. You can apply some filters here by sales order, customer account, requested ship date, site, and warehouse. And when you apply the filter, you can select the order lines and then you can here click add. When you select a specific order line and click add, then this specific order line will be moved to the release to warehouse section. You can also use the option of add order. In that case, the entire lines of these sales orders will be moved here to the release to warehouse section. You can also use the option of add all, and in that case, all the open order lines will be moved to release to warehouse. After that, click release to warehouse, and the order lines will be released to the warehouse. The third way to release order lines to the warehouse by using the load planning workbench form that found in warehouse management module, loads, then load planning workbench. The load planning workbench will be demonstrated in details in the load management lesson. The load planning workbench form is typically used by the transportation coordinator. So the transportation coordinator will find here the open sales order lines, so he can add these order lines into a new load or an existing load. Then the transportation coordinator will apply transportation rate and some other stuff related to the transportation management. The important part in this step is how to release a specific load to the warehouse. In the lower section, you will find here the open loads, then select the load, click release, then click release to warehouse. Then here in the release to warehouse, click OK. After that, this load will be released to warehouse. Now let's move to the next option and see how to perform the release to warehouse process on a periodic basis. You can release the order lines periodically and based on a recurrence time frame by using the automatic release of sales orders periodic function. This job found in warehouse management module, release to warehouse, then automatic release of sales orders. When you configure the automatic release of sales orders job, you should pay attention to the following option and configure it based on the business requirements. The first option here is quantity to release. Using this option, you can select whether the whole line quantity or only the physically reserved quantity should be released to the warehouse. If you select all, so you should ensure that the whole line quantity has been reserved, or you should configure an option in the warehouse form to reserve the order line quantity while processing the release to warehouse step. Now let's navigate to the warehouse form and review this option. Now we are in the warehouse form, warehouse tab, then you will find an option called reserve when orders are released by a batch job. When you set this option to yes, then this will ensure that while processing the automatic release sales orders by batch job, the order lines will be reserved. The next option is called allow release of partially released orders. You can use this option to specify whether the remaining quantities of the partially released orders should be released to the warehouse or not. If this option is set to no, then the remaining quantity of the partially released orders will not be released to the warehouse. And when the batch job reaches those orders, the following error message will be thrown. The order has been partially released to warehouse. Sales order X could not be released. When this option is set to yes, then the remaining quantity of the partially released sales orders will be released to the warehouse. The next option is keep reservations on release failure. You can use this option to specify whether the quantity that has been reserved for sales order should remain reserved if the release to warehouse process fails. I'll set this option to yes to ensure that the reserved quantity will remain reserved even if the release to warehouse process fails. The next option is very important, group releases by customer. This option controls whether the system should run the release to warehouse process separately for each customer or whether it should release all the sales orders for all customers at once. When this option is enabled, so first the system will select the sales order lines for a selected customer, then release those lines to the warehouse, and then process the next customer. When this option is disabled, the system will release all the available sales order lines in a single release to warehouse operation. And in that case, if a sales order has an issue, this might interrupt the entire release to warehouse operation and will not release any sales order in this process. But when you enable this option, so only the sales order lines of this customer will not be released. Indeed, when you enable this option, it will improve the performance of the release to warehouse process and also will reduce the number of sales orders that cannot be released to the warehouse. But also you should pay attention to the fact whether the wave template is configured to process wave at release to warehouse or no, because this combination might generate many waves for each customer. Hence, the picking work will be generated for that customer only. So if you want to generate work that combines shipments of multiple customers, so you should either turn off the group releases by customer option or postpone wave processing by turning off the process wave at release to warehouse option. For now, and until reviewing the wave template configurations, I'll set group releases by customer option to yes. The next option is logged order handling. Using this option, you can select how the system should handle the sales orders that are currently logged because they are being edited by other users or other process. You can select here from two options. The first one is wait for orders to unlock, and using this option, the system should wait for the orders to become unlocked before releasing them to the warehouse. Indeed, with this option, the release to warehouse process might take more time. Or you can select the second option, skip logged orders. Using this option, the system will skip the logged orders, so they will be wait until the next run. The next option is valid order types. So here you can select and specify the valid order types that will be considered by this job. So here you can select first the normal sales orders or the item requirement sales orders, and the item requirement sales orders is a type of the sales orders that will be generated from the project accounting module, or you can select both sales and item requirements. The next option is credit limit. If you are performing credit limit check, then you may select here the appropriate credit limit type. Now let's move to the next section, records to include. So here in the filter form, you may specify here a specific filter criteria for the applicable sales orders that should be selected by this job. So here you can select from the available tables and the available informations, or you can build join with the other tables to build specific filter criteria as per the business requirements. Then here in the run in the background section, you can set batch processing option to yes to ensure that this job will be executed in batch. Also, you can specify here a schedule recurrence time. So you can specify here when the batch of the release to warehouse process should be executed, like every 1 hour, or maybe you can specify a specific hour when the batch should be processed. Now let's talk about another topic that works in conjunction with the release to warehouse process. The fulfillment policies. The fulfillment policy controls the percentage of the total price or the quantity of an order that must be reserved before this order can be released to the warehouse. So for example, a fulfillment policy that has a rate of 70% means that the total of the reserved quantities must be 70% or greater than the total of the ordered quantity. The fulfillment policy can be defined as a company-wide policy or could be also defined as a customer-specific policy. Now let's see how to manage and define the fulfillment policies. So the fulfillment policies found in warehouse management module, setup, release to warehouse, then fulfillment policies. So I created a fulfillment policy of 70%. So here in the general tab, I specified 70% as a fulfillment rate. This means that 70% of the order line quantity must be reserved before the sales order can be released to the warehouse. Then, in the value type, you can select and specify here whether the fulfillment policy is based on the total price or the total quantity. Then, in the fulfillment violation messages, you can specify and determine the severity of the error message that will be displayed to the user when the fulfillment rate is violated. So if you select accept, then the sales order can be released to the warehouse and no messages will be displayed to the user, even if the fulfillment rate doesn't met. You can also select warning to display a warning message to the user, but still the sales order can be released to the warehouse. or you can select error. In that case, an error message will be displayed to the user and the sales order cannot be released to the warehouse. Once you configure the fulfillment policies, we can define the policy as company-wide policy or a customer-specific policy. First, let's navigate to the account receivable parameters where we can define the company-wide policy. So here in the account receivable parameters that found in account receivable module, set up account receivable parameters, then warehouse tab, then you can select here the sales order fulfillment policy. We can make it also specific for a customer account. So I'll navigate to the customer form and then in the warehouse tab, you can select here the fulfillment policy. Now let's navigate to the sales order form and see how the fulfillment rate validation works with the sales order. So I just created the sales order line of 10 eaches, but I only reserved 5 eaches. So I would expect right now, if I click release to warehouse, the release to warehouse process will fail and an error message will be displayed. So let's click here, release to warehouse. Then, as expected, an error message displays and the release to warehouse process fails. The error message is stating that a fulfillment rate of 70% based on the quantity was not met for this sales order. And now let's talk about the shipments and the shipment consolidation. So the shipment can be one or multiple sales orders that are going for the same customer and to the same destination. The shipment lifecycle starts with a status open as a result of the release to warehouse process. Then when the related wave is processed, the status turns into waived and the picking work will be created. While processing the picking work, the status will be in process, and after completing the picking work, the status will be loaded. And finally, when the shipment is confirmed, the status will be shipped. It's a common requirement that the companies are looking for shipment consolidation opportunities in order to reduce the shipping cost and also looking for the customer satisfaction. Think about a company that outsources the delivery services by third-party shipping carriers like FedEx and UPS. So typically, it's required to consolidate the shipments of the same customer that will be delivered by the same shipping carrier to the same destination. There are two options to manage and configure the shipment consolidations. The first one by using the Consolidate Shipment at Release to Warehouse option that found in the warehouse form, and in that case, the shipment consolidation is determined on the warehouse level. When this option is enabled on a specific warehouse, the shipments that will be shipped from this warehouse for the same customer to the same destination will be consolidated together while processing the release to warehouse process. And the second option by using the shipment consolidation policies. The shipment consolidation policies is managed by the feature management workspace, and it has been introduced to improve the shipment consolidation process. Using this feature, you can build different shipment consolidation policies where every policy has combination of selected fields that determine when the policy is applied and which shipments should be consolidated. And now the question is, which option should I use? In fact, there is no straightforward answer to this question as it depends on the company business requirements and the warehouse and the logistics process. But simply, I can say you can use the Consolidate Shipment at Release to Warehouse option if the shipment consolidation process is simple, like up to the customer and the address information levels. But when it comes to more complex requirements, like in our scenario, where the shipments should be consolidated considering the shipping carriers, indeed, the shipping consolidation policy will be the right choice as you can define such a complex policy. Be aware that the shipment consolidation policy is managed by the feature management workspace, so you should enable it first. And also, it's important to mention that both options cannot be used side by side. So once you enable the new feature, the legacy option of consolidate shipment at release to warehouse will be removed. Now let's see how to configure the shipment consolidation options. I'll start first by the simple way, so I'll navigate to the warehouse form that's found in warehouse management module, setup, warehouse, then warehouses. Then I'll select a specific warehouse since in this way the shipment consolidation is determined on the warehouse level. I'll select warehouse 80 and then in the warehouse tab under the consolidation group, you will find here an option called consolidate shipment at release to warehouse. I'll set this option to yes. When this option is enabled, then the sales orders that will be shipped from this warehouse to the same customer and the same destination will be consolidated together. Then let's move to the second option by using the shipment consolidation policies. The shipment consolidation policies is managed by the feature management. So first I'll navigate to the feature management workspace and enable the feature consolidate shipment. Please note that once this feature is enabled, it cannot be disabled and the consolidate shipment as release to warehouse option that found in the warehouse form will be removed. Once you enable the Consolidate Shipment feature, you can configure the shipment consolidation policies that found in Warehouse Management module, Setup, Release to Warehouse, then Shipment Consolidation policies. In the Shipment Consolidation policies, you can define several policies for the sales and the transfer orders. So here in the left band, using the policy type, you can specify whether this policy for sales orders or transfer issue. You can also use the create default setup. So the system will create default policy for the sales and the transfer orders. The default policy consider the same set of fields that were used in the old logic of consolidate shipment option that found in the warehouse form. When it comes to define a new consolidation policy, so every shipment consolidation policy should have a query that defines when the policy is applied. You can define the criteria or the query here in the edit query and a set of selected fields that use to group or to consolidate the shipments that have the same values of the selected fields. And now let's define a consolidation policy that should consolidate the shipments of the e-commerce orders that will be shipped from warehouse 80 and it will be grouped by the shipping carrier. So I'll click new and then I'll give it a policy name and policy description like warehouse 80 online store. I'll use the same as policy description. And then here I'll specify the policy sequence. The policy sequence is managing the execution order as it determines the position of each policy when the system evaluates the available policies. So basically, while processing the release to warehouse process, the system will search for the available policies in sequence until the criteria that's specified here in the edit query will met. So if you have multiple policies for the same warehouse, then you should set the policy that has the most specific condition on top of the list as the policy that has the lower sequence number and that will meet the criteria will be applied first. You can manage the position of each policy either manually by specifying the policy sequence number here, or you can use the move up and move down options to manage the position of the policy. So here, I'll set the Warehouse 80 online store policy on top of the list. I'll click here move up, and then you will see here that the policy sequence is equal 1. Then I'm gonna specify the edit query of this policy. So here in the edit query form, you can define the criteria that determines when this policy is applied. So in our scenario, the applicable sales orders are the e-commerce orders that will be shipped from Warehouse 80. So here in the inventory dimension, in the field of warehouse, I'm gonna select here Warehouse 80. Then in the sales order table, I'll select here the field of pool to select the internet order pools. And then I'll click OK. Then here in the General tab, we have the option of Consolidate with Open Shipments. When this option is enabled or turned on, then while processing the release to warehouse process, the system will search for existing shipments that have been created based on the same consolidation policy instead of creating a new shipment. It's important to mention that the system will only consolidate with existing shipments that have a status of open. So the shipments that link to a wave that has been processed, hence the status is released or higher, will not be considered as a target for consolidation. Then moving to the important parts while building the shipment consolidation policies, which is the consolidation fields. Here in the consolidation fields, you can define the combination of the fields that will be used to consolidate or group by the shipments that have the same values. It's important to mention that for the sales order type, there are 4 mandatory fields that must be selected: the account number, delivery recipient, postal address, and the warehouse. Then you can move the other available fields from the remaining fields to the selected fields. So in our scenario, we're gonna move the shipping carrier from the remaining fields using the right arrow to the selected fields. And then I'll click Save. Now let's see how the shipment consolidation policies work. But before that, let's review what we configured for this shipment consolidation policy. So first, we specified here the edit query. So the applicable orders that will be targeted by the shipment consolidation policy are the sales orders that will be shipped from warehouse 80 and that have sales order pool 02. And then, considering the fact that the policy has sequence number 1, this means that this policy will be evaluated first, then the default policy, until the criteria that's specified in the edit query will be met. Then, since we have the consolidate with open shipments enabled, the system will consolidate the shipments to an existing shipment with the status open. And then the shipments will be consolidated or grouped by as per the selected fields. So here the shipments of the same customer that will be shipped by the same shipping carrier to the same destination from warehouse 80 will be consolidated together. Now let's navigate to release sales orders to warehouse form in order to review how the shipment consolidation policies work. So I just created some sales order lines, the order lines for two different customers, and also some of the order lines for the same customer either have different delivery address or different shipping carrier. The shipment consolidation policies are evaluated every time when the automated or the manual release to warehouse process is performed. Now, let's move the sales order lines to the release to warehouse section. So I'll click here, add all. And then here in the release to warehouse section, you can override the fulfillment policy for a specific sales order line, or also you can select new shipment consolidation policy. Once you're ready, click release to warehouse, and then the lines will be released to the warehouse and the shipment consolidation policy will be evaluated. Now let's navigate to the Open Shipments form in order to review the created shipments. Depends on the wave template configuration. If the process wave at release to warehouse option is enabled, then the shipments will be created with a status waived, and in that case, you should review the shipments in the active shipments form. But if the option is disabled, then the shipments will be created with a status open, and in that case, you will find the shipments in the open shipments form that found in warehouse management module, shipments, then open shipments. Now let's review the created shipments. So what I see here that the system created 4 shipments, and the shipment consolidation policy that has been used is Warehouse 80 online store, since the sales orders are related to sales pool 02 and the sales orders will be shipped from Warehouse 80. What we can see also that the system created 2 shipments for customer named Muhammad Shuman, and the system didn't consolidate the shipments, consider the fact that the delivery recipient is different and also the shipping carrier is different. So you can see here that the system created this shipment that will be delivered to the customer home address by FedEx. And there is another shipment that will be delivered to the customer work address by UPS. If we look also into this shipment, you will see that this shipment consolidated the order lines of sales orders 55 and 56. And indeed, this is due to the fact that the delivery recipient of these orders is the same, and also the shipping carrier is UPS. If you look into the shipments of customer name John Young, you will see that the system also didn't consolidate the shipments. However, the delivery recipient is the same, but the shipping carrier is different. So what we see here that the system created this shipment that will be delivered by UPS to this delivery recipient address, and the second shipment for this sales order that will be delivered by FedEx to this delivery recipient address. The shipments could be also manually consolidated using the shipment consolidation option in the shipment form. So after releasing the sales order to the warehouse, you can consolidate the shipments that have the same shipment consolidation policy together. Or even you can consolidate the shipments when they are in the dock using the shipment consolidation workbench form. Now let's see how to consolidate the shipments manually. So now we are in the open shipments form, and here we have some of the open shipments. If you look here into these 2 shipments, the one of 184 and the second one 185, you will see that these 2 shipments will be delivered to the same customer, the same delivery recipient, and by the same shipping carrier. And if you look also to the shipping consolidated policy, you will see that both shipments have the same shipment consolidation policy. So right now, these 2 shipments could be consolidated together. In order to consolidate the shipments manually, so I'll select one of these 2 shipments and then I'll click shipments, then consolidate shipments. Then the system will show here the shipments that could be consolidated to the selected shipments. So I'll select this one and then I'll click OK. If you go back, you will see that two shipments have been consolidated together. The second way where you can consolidate the shipments by using the shipment consolidation workbench that found in warehouse management module, release to warehouse, then shipment consolidation workbench. Using the shipment consolidation workbench, the system can suggest opportunities to consolidate the shipments when they are in the dock. Still, you can manually override the system suggestion in the shipment consolidation form. The Shipment Consolidation Workbench is managed by the Feature Management Workspace. So first, you should enable the Manual Shipment Consolidation feature. We will not deep dive into how the feature works because this feature will be demonstrated in a separate lesson, but at least I'd like to give you a quick overview how this feature works. So first, you should define shipment consolidation templates that found in Warehouse Management module, Setup, Release to Warehouse, then Shipment Consolidation templates. The shipment consolidation templates are used to group the shipments that have the similar values. So here in the shipment consolidation templates, you can specify a specific criteria based on a specific customer. You can also here specify the origin, site, and warehouse. You can make it specific to a specific destination, and you can specify the applicable products that will be targeted by the shipment consolidation template by specifying here a specific product filter code. After that, I'll define the edit query. So this is template for UPS. So I'll select here in the shipping carrier UPS. Then let's navigate back to the shipment consolidation workbench. And here I'll use the shipment consolidation template of UPS. And then I'll click consolidate shipments. After that, the system will processing this operation and propose the shipments that could be consolidated together. So here we can see that we have this shipment. We can call this as the base shipment. So this is 179 shipment that included also two other shipments, 186, 187. Still, we can make one of these two shipments as base shipment. So here I can use the option of set as base shipment. And also you can move one of these shipments to be a separate base shipment. So let's select this one, for example, 186. I'll click move to new proposed shipment. So here we have two base shipments. Still, I can add it once again. So I can uh, add this one, 179, or let's add this one, 186, and I can add it to 179. So again, we have one base shipment. You can also review here the proposed load lines, and you can review the not include section, not include the shipments if you would like to add one of these shipments into the base shipments. Then after that, I'll click consolidate, where the system will consolidate these three shipments together. So these three shipments will be consolidated into the base one. So now let's navigate to the all shipments and review the results. So here I performed a filter of these three shipments. And then right now, let's click refresh. I would expect that these two shipments will be disappeared since these shipments will be consolidated into the base or the original shipments 179. Now let's recap what we discussed in the session. So first, we discussed the release to warehouse process, and then we reviewed the available options on how to release the sales orders to the warehouse. Then we discussed the shipment process and the consolidate shipments options. Then we reviewed how to define the shipment consolidation policies and how to automate the shipment consolidation process. Then we reviewed and discussed how to manually consolidate the shipments. Thank you for watching and your time. Stay tuned for the next lesson. Feel free to reach out if I can help. Take care and good luck.